Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this special quorum court meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the Washington County financial matters. Our prayer and our pledge is going to be handled by Mr. J.P. Harvey Bowman. Mr. Bowman.
Lord, we come before you tonight and ask you for wisdom and discernment to help us sort through the difficult and complicated issues of this county. We just ask you to provide the thoughts and the information we need, the wisdom we need to make the best decisions for this county. Just thank you for all the blessings you send, and we ask you to forgive us for all those things we do wrong. We ask it all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know all of you are wondering where Mr. Zaga is. He's left today at noon, and he's homesick. He's running a fever, so I didn't want him back down here. So we're going to have to get by without him tonight, but I just want all to know. Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls.
Here.
Harvey Bowman.
Here.
Rick Cochran.
Here.
Robert Dennis.
Here.
Lisa Ecke.
Here.
Ann Harbison.
Here.
Sharon Lloyd.
Here.
Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison.
Here.
Sue Madison.
Here.
Joel Maxwell. Joe Patterson.
Here.
Butch Pond.
Here.
Bill Ussery.
Here.
Quorum present. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Do I have a motion and a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda's adopted. Next thing, we're going to turn this over to Mr. Bobby Hill, our treasurer. Bobby, if you'll come to the mic and tell us what you know.
It'll be a short talk. All right, 5.1, Treasurer Financial Summary. As always, we start with general expenditures, 2.5, over the revenues of 1.1 million. 500,000 of that expenditure went to the insurance fund. You can see right below that, employee insurance, 860 in revenues. 500,000 of that was the general transfer. Go down to 2,000 road. They're still maintaining revenues over their expenditures, and they ended the month with 1.9 million in the bank. 3017 jail. That revenue 1.4 million for the month of August. That was helped by another good payment from the state for prisoner housing. That came in at 500,000 this month, and they ended the month at 1.2 million. 5.2. 1 cent sales tax for June. We collected 561,000. That was 20,000 over this time last year. 3.59% higher. And this was for June, and that's when I said back then I'd be interested to see how the Hogs hosting the baseball regional would do. And actually, I was hoping for a better bump than that, but I don't guess we can be greedy. 5.3, the jail tax. We collected 763,000, and that's up 33,000 over last August, and that puts us at 400,000 over 2014 this year. 5.4, the road tax. It jumped up 6.78% with 116,000 in collections. Finally, 5.5, this is Nelson's insurance report. We began the month of August at 1.2 million. We ended at 1.7 million. Again, that does include the 500,000 from the general fund. And as of today, the balance is 1.588 million. Nelson is aware of this and says we're still fine. That's all I have. Any questions?
I have a more substantive question, but I realized on 5.5, it looks like there might be an employee name on it. I'm not sure we should be getting that kind of information, just FYI.
Oh, okay.
And then I wanted to ask a question on 5.1 on the road fund. So when
Okay.
you're talking their revenue, I know that some of us were a little surprised to learn earlier in the year the sources of that revenue because of the percentage of the sales tax. So when you calculate their revenues, what are the sources that you're getting it from
On
the road revenue?
well, the main is the 40% that they get currently of the state sales tax that we get, the 1 cent. General gets 60, road gets 40, and then
So
also.
would that be 5.2? Am I making this, are you saying that they're getting 40% of what's in 5.2?
5.2. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Then they also get the state sales tax, and then the general revenue turned back. Those are the major components of their revenue.
In their millage as well, right? The road millage.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Yes. You are correct.
Okay, thank
Part
you.
of that they get about 38% of their 1.1 mil. The other goes to the
The
cities.
rest goes to others, yes, right. Okay, okay. Thank you, Madam Judge. No more questions.
Thank you.
And give us comptroller's report.
Okay, 6.1 is the unappropriated reserves report. The ordinance that affected it this month was the $31,880 that went towards planning for the second phase of the mapping that they're working on. That's the only thing that changed for this month. And then on 6.2, that is the report that shows the funds, and the unappropriated reserves is the last column for each of those funds. Shows a percent expended, and it shows a percent realized. And it's just broken down by fund. And then the next report will be the same type report. It shows the expenditures, and it shows the, but it's by department, so you can see each department and what the encumbrances are and the percent used. And as you will notice, on the 6.2, the percent expended for county general shows 66%, and on the 6.3, it shows it's 72%, and that's because of the encumbrances. And is there any questions on those reports?
J.P. Harbison.
Okay, on 6.3, it shows county judge 62% on mine.
And your mic.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said 70.
At county general total, if you'll go down to the next, on the next
to
page.
the next
the
page,
total, it shows that it's
total is
72%. Yeah.
But the general is, I got it, 62. I didn't go clear.
But the county judge is just the county judge's budget is 62.
Oh, okay, and the
But if you-
general is 72. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Cheryl. The next thing we have is number 7. Deputy Cochran, would you please take that for us?
Thank you, Judge.
Now, can I ask you, would you please read these
I will.
yourself, unless you want George to come do it
will.
because Steve is sick? If you do that,
I'll
please.
do that.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7.1 on our agenda is an ordinance appropriating $5,208 from the Law Library Fund to the Law Library budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $5,208 from the Law Library Fund to the other professional services line item of the Law Library budget for 2015. And we have a letter just behind that, 7.2, from Roger Northam explaining that. Is Roger here? You want to come and speak to your ordinance? Please.
Please identify yourself, Roger, for the,
I'm Roger Northam. I'm the county law librarian.
go ahead and take a seat.
Thank you. Do you want me to make the
Yes.
presentation?
Yes, please.
We're just basically asking for the appropriation for adding funds to, we're partnering with Legal Aid of Arkansas to add more hours to our, currently, what we're doing is the legal help desk that is held every other Friday, or was, and then they want to do every Friday for individuals who cannot afford legal advice and legal help in basic, like uncontested divorces, and so forth. So that's pretty much what we're asking for.
Do you have any questions for Roger? Yes, go through, please.
They came to me earlier about this, and I said we were probably limited with what we could do with county general for this purpose, but I'm glad that they figured out that they could probably use some library funds, because this is a very worthwhile service. It cuts down on the questions that our elected officials and offices get, most likely the circuit clerk's office and the county clerk's office, from people who really desperately need help. These are people that are very, very poor. To qualify for legal aid, you have to be really down there on the income scale, and they're people who, they're the most basic of services that they're looking for. So I'm glad you brought this forward.
And we're proud to be a partner with them in this, so it's a big thing for us. Anybody else?
Any other questions or comments for Roger?
I'll move to pass 7.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I have a point of order. I thought that our attorney, Mr. Zega, had decided that even appropriation ordinances needed public comment. I think he said that at the last meeting.
Yes, he has.
Okay. I mean, I'm not suggesting that there's going to be a great deal, but I'm just trying to follow the
I
rules.
still think it's a good idea to give the public an opportunity. So we have a motion and a second, and any discussion on this from the court? Do I have any public comment? With no further comment, Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Essery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
This ordinance is adopted. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Roger, for your time. Next thing we have is number 8.
Thank you, Judge. 8.1 is an ordinance recognizing and appropriating revenues of $550 in the Animal Shelter Grant Fund for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby a recognized additional revenue of $550 in the local grants revenue line item of Animal Shelter Grant Fund 1905-8781 for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $550 from the Animal Shelter Grant Fund to the medical equipment line item of the Humane Society Grant Budget 1905-0310-2014 for 2015. Do we have anybody from the shelter or the grants that are?
I don't see anyone here
Okay.
tonight for this.
Renee is here.
Renee,
do you
you've
have
got the
anything you
grant.
can add?
If you'll come forward, please.
This is a grant that Angela applied for through the HSO, and it's going to be to purchase spay and neuter supplies, and it'll allow them to do 2 additional spay packs.
Great.
That's it.
Great. We've already got the money. We just need to appropriate.
That's
Any
correct.
questions for Renee?
I'll
Steve?
move to pass 8.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? With no comments, Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Essery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
This ordinance is adopted. Number 9.
9.1, thank you, Judge. This is an ordinance appropriating $2,410 from the general fund to the Quorum Court budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $2,410 from the general fund to the following line items in the Quorum Court budget for 2015. Small equipment, $160. Other professional services, $2,250, for a total appropriation, $2,410. And as I understand, this is for our videotaping for the later part of the year. Is that correct?
Karen, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it is.
I'll move to pass 9.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Judge,
Yes, you're recognized, J.P. Bowman.
is this to go ahead and video all of our meetings?
Yes. It's
Okay.
either all committees, however many is held a month.
So
whether it's
this
committee or
would,
otherwise.
this is just for the balance of this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and for a full year, it's $750 a month, so it'd be
Okay.
a $9,000 for an entire year.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Any, yes, J.P.
So that means that if we go on ahead and do it for, like right now, then we're going to be doing it in forever? I mean, is that what we're saying here? We're going to be spending $750 a month videotaping? For the,
Well, it would be for,
I mean,
like,
we're
if you
just doing
appropriate
tonight.
this money, that would just be for the rest of this year.
Right.
And then when you do the 2016 budget, you would, of course, look at it for the whole next year. And it'd go every budget year. Of course, we could cancel anytime you wanted to cancel.
okay.
J.P. Lundstrom. I'm sorry, were you finished? Okay.
When this was initially brought up, I wasn't really excited about it, but I wasn't disappointed in it either. But as I look at it now, I voted the other day against the extra money for the animal shelter because of our lean budget and our diminishing reserves. I'm going to vote against this for the same reason. I think we can take appropriate minutes and so forth so we know what happened in these meetings without videotaping every one of them. I just talking to Bobby Hill a few minutes ago, and he indicated that our revenue probably is not going to be as good next year as it was this year. So, $9,000 a year is not a lot of money. But it's like people say, well, this little tax is only going to cost $20 a year. Well, but you got to add that $20 to the other $3,000 and the other $400, so at the end of the year you're paying $6,000 or $8,000 a year in taxes, in a family of four. All these things keep adding up. As we keep increasing the size of government, keep increasing the spending of county government, we're going to have more taxes because we're running out of money. And I know I'm going to vote against the tax increase, so I'm just going to have to go against this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. This is a minor expenditure in the grand scheme of things for what translates to access to our processes, transparency of government. I think that most citizens were surprised to know there was a quorum court through the issues with the animal shelter, and they came to our meetings and they were surprised to even know we existed. And that's not good. And we do so much work in our committees that's not viewed by the public like our quorum court meetings are. So this is about us making ourselves accessible and transparent to the public. And in the grand scheme of things, that's a minor expenditure. People need to know what we do, and they need to be engaged in the process. There are important financial issues that they need to be aware of, and they're not going to know about them unless we give them access to our meetings. So I support this fully and appreciate the work that Ms. Beeks did to get it going with the City of Fayetteville. Thank you, Madam Judge.
J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Judge. My argument is that I voted against the animal shelter also for a minimum amount. It's going to be about the same amount as this. I mean, $9,000, $10,000. But I have to say that if they didn't watch us before, why do we think they're going to watch us now? I mean, they're not going to spend the public's not going to spend the time to watch it, and I think we're just throwing money away. So I'm going to vote against it.
J.P. Bowman.
Guys, I think y'all know that I've probably been one of the most ardent commitment to keeping the budget under control. But, you know, this is something that I think I pushed for early on. And guys, we know that we've talked about what's going on in the minutes and how they're represented, whether they are accurate or not. And if we've got a digital record here of everything said and done, that we can observe the interactions and the whole thing, then we eliminate a lot of issues there about accuracy, about what actually happened, and we've got a permanent record there that people can go back to. You know, we have the newspaper come out here and occasionally TV come out here, and they make their comments based on what they observe and what they think. But if we can go back to a record here that clearly displays everything said and everything done, I think it eliminates a lot of issues. The other thing is Karen and Carly have talked about how many hours they put into trying to sort through everything said, and I don't know how much that costs us, but we're talking about quite a lot of printing costs and time on their part to generate the notes, voluminous notes, that we get brought to here on a regular basis. So, guys, I'm torn between, I hate to spend another $9,000, and that had to be approved for next year. But at this point, I think it's something that's really important, and we ought to, I'm going to vote yes on this doggone thing. I think it's something that's really important for the accuracy in what's going on in our courtroom. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I completely agree with J.P. Bowman. This is a service to the public. We have people that don't find it easy to travel to the courthouse to sit here and listen to us in a meeting, that would listen to it at home. I first got interested in local government, I won't say how many years ago, from watching Fayetteville City Council meetings on TV. I ironed while I watched, and I learned a lot. Quorum Court wasn't on TV at that time, and people do care about what goes on in the county, and I think this is a service to the people that do care and the people that will come to care, because we are doing the county's work. They're entitled to know, and we want them to know. And from a somewhat selfish point of view, I like to go back and look at the record. Now, Karen and Ms. Sandridge sometimes will audio tape a meeting for me. Either I didn't remember exactly what happened or I wanted a refresher, but to actually be able to see what people are saying does add more meaning to the conversation. I've done that from watching city council meetings now from the web page. So it is an important expenditure because it is a service to the public and it has a benefit to us as well. I spent over 2.5 hours reviewing those minutes at the last Quorum Court meeting that we had, and I'm frankly dreading reviewing the corrections, but I will. But we need to contain our minutes, and this will be a much better record that will truly reflect what happened here, while the minutes often don't. So I would urge the rest of you to help us find ways to save money when it comes to budget, but remember that this is a service to the public. Thank you.
J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I just went back and did a little bit of math. I'm as fiscally aware of kind of where we're at and how we need to. You have to say no to something somewhere along the way, but when I do the math, there were about 10 meetings I think that we had scheduled for last month. So it doesn't take long to divide 750 out by 10 and come up with $75 a meeting. And I know Karen, we talked a little bit when we discussed this before about how many hours it takes per each meeting to do the minutes and to do all that. And then there's the accuracy or whatever part of that. So I think, even though I do think we need to be very much aware of where we're spending money, and I believe that if you take care of the pennies, the dollars will eventually take care of themselves. I think on this one, I'm not sure that we're saving a lot of money by not passing this, just because of the amount of time that we will conserve in man hours that can be put to something else productive, that we're spending these resources already. We're just doing it in personnel instead of with an ordinance. So yeah, I'm going to vote in support of this, both for the math and for the accuracy. Thank you.
J.B. Harbison.
Well, I didn't realize that this was going to replace the minutes. I didn't think this was replacing minutes. So what we have done is add another layer of records to the county's whatever, the county history, I guess, because once we get through this becomes history. So, I'm I really haven't decided how I'm going to vote on this because I don't think that many people really are involved in listening to the regular quorum court meetings, let alone will they watch the committee meetings. However, the committee meetings are much more detailed and much more involved in hashing out problems than the regular quorum court meetings. So I haven't decided how I'm going to vote. Thank you.
Jackie Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Only thing you can speak to is what you know, and what I know is I hear from more constituents about the way the meeting went than I do even about what they read in the paper. So kind of interesting to me on that. To me, it means that if 5 people call you and talk to you about what they saw, then you multiply that maybe by 10 or 20 or 30. I don't know what the multiplier would be, but I get more comments that way than I get any other way. And so I wouldn't watch it personally. I could watch something else, I think. But they're interested in it, so I'm not paying the $75 to be on TV. I'd prefer not to be, actually. But since my constituents say things like that to me, I'm going to vote yes because I'm supposed to represent them, and they like to see it for whatever reason. I guess it's because they're interested in that topic. So I'm going to vote yes because I think that's what my constituents want me to do. Thank you.
Jackie Harbison.
If you live within the city limits of Farmington and Fayetteville, yes, you get it. But I bet 90% of my district can't even see it. So, it's, well, when you say online, probably 90% don't have computers. So I'm not sure that this is cost effective for my district. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Sound like we've had a good one. Yes, J.P. Pond.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to have to vote for this because of the transparency issue. And that multiplier is probably more like 100. Just from what I understand or what I've been told. And yes, a lot of my district is rural, but I still get comments from people about watching that. I've never been able to watch it because I'm not on cable. But just really think about this being a transparency issue. It's not going to cause me to think, well, if we do this, then we can start just doing outlines of the minutes. That's another transparency issue in itself. I still want the minutes recorded, written down, because a lot of people, you have to have them. A lot of people go and look at them. Those are history. But that has nothing to do with what we're voting on here tonight. This is strictly about having our meetings recorded. And I believe we need to be as transparent as we possibly can, even though it's that much more money. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
I'm going to make one more little comment. We spent all this money for this IT department, spent all this money for these nice little microphones with speakers in them. We've got recording equipment back there in that closet. Every word that's said in these committee meetings and the quorum court meetings is already recorded. So it's not like we're losing all this data. Unlike J.P. Dennis, I have never had a single constituent tell me how they watch the meetings. I've been told a couple of times I've been seen on TV while they're switching around looking for Gunsmoke or something. But I've never been able to find the dadgum channel of Quorum Court meetings on when I'm at home. 216.
Call Karen, she'd hate it.
That's if you're on Cox. Well, but then I don't know what time it comes on, all this. It's not an easy thing to watch. But everything we come up with around here is another service we just have to have. And it just costs a little bit more money. And we just keep adding a little here and a little there, a little bit here, a little bit there. First thing you know, you've got big dollars. And we're running out of dollars. So I just don't know how valuable it is. Like J.P. Madison said, if she wants to know what was said, she gets with Karen. Karen gives her a CD with the meeting on it. Anybody that wants that information could have that same information. We're already doing that. It's very simple to do. So I don't know why that couldn't be used instead of minutes as far as that's concerned, but I think our county attorney said that the written minutes were a legal document showing what we do. So I don't know the answer to all that either, but I just don't know how really necessary this thing is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
J.P. Aki.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I was pointing over to J.P. Bowman, who wanted your attention. But I didn't realize when I first joined the court that they were being televised until I had a constituent call me up and tell me, "Atta girl." And I went, "What are you talking about?" And they told me, and I said, "Oh, my goodness." So I turned to 216, only to find out that I had my mouth open a lot of times, and I'm going, "Shut your mouth." I just sit there, listened to everybody, and I was horrified. And so my husband says, "What happens?" I said, "My mouth is open a lot. I need to just quit, close your mouth." Anyway, duct tape. I didn't realize the value to my constituents, those that can't get out, those that are shut in. And when I do laundry, I saw J.P. Madison when she was on another council talking about trees. And it's addicting. It's almost like a soap opera. You just have to hear what everybody has to say, and then you get lulled into doing your laundry. But you keep watching it, the next program and the next program. And I found myself a lot more informed about what was going on. And that's what happens. I have a better view. And that's what people want. And you do have a lot of people that are shut in, and television is valuable to them. That's my opinion. So if you see my mouth open, just go. And I will. Thank you, Madam Judge.
J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. As long as I've been on the court, I've hoped for this day to come that we have a chance to vote to publicize our meetings in committee. Quorum court meetings are pretty dull, except for our hearings, when we get into those. They get pretty spicy. But the heavy lifting, the big work does get done in committee. And constituents, if they have the opportunity to see what we're doing in committee, then may show up at the quorum court meeting to say, "Hey, I have something to say about this or that." I agree with Tom. Money's running low. It really is. I look at the about 50 meetings. Karen, we have about 50 meetings a year. Is that about right? Pretty close, give or take one or two.
Yeah,
So 50 meetings at yeah, I was going to say, well, that's the fixed rate, no matter how many meetings we have, is not that expensive per meeting. It's about the cost of another JP for an annual fee. It'd be like our 16th JP in a way, kind of. But if this does pass, this is going on the wall at my house. I think this is great for our constituents. I have had the comments about the meetings when they do get to see them, and I think that we will be able to be more responsive when the people do know what we're talking about, because sometimes it's very late in the game when they finally do hear about it, or it's after the fact. In some cases, I've had that. They didn't even know we were going to be talking about it because they didn't check the agenda, or the agenda didn't really spell out what we're going to do. So I will support it, and then we'll reconsider. Hopefully we can put something on the broadcast through the fall for people to phone us or write us and let us know that they deem this valuable, so that as we go through budget, maybe we find out nobody's watching. Maybe we find out there's a whole lot of people that are watching, and that'd give us a good indication of whether we should fund it for next year. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Bowman.
Guys, you know, I look at this situation. We all watch sports on TV from time to time, and we always know there's some questionable calls. And what I'm talking about here is a replay situation. So we can go back and hear and see exactly what's going on in our courtroom. And I go home from time to time and wonder, now, what did I say or what did they say about this situation? And this kind of event, we could go back home and we can go through that process and see and hear exactly what was said. And that's why I think it's important, not only for us, but for the media, because we always have calls from the media about what do you think. And if they want to know what we think, they can get online and see for themselves. So that's the only reason. I find it real tough to vote for this and disagree with my friend Tom. But, guys, I think it's this thing of being open out here about what's going on in this courtroom and helping people become more aware is really important. So I'm going to stand by my previous commitment. Thank you.
J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam. While we were sharing a little humor there, I couldn't help but think about this when one constituent said, "Did you know that mic is still live after the meeting's over?" And no, and my answer to him was, "No, I did not, but thank you very much for telling me." And so I just thought I'd share that with you in case you didn't know it. Thank you.
Our phones are like that sometimes, too, our personal phones. J.P. Harbison.
I have a question, I guess, for Karen. Are all the meetings, all the committee meetings, and I know the Quorum Court, are they online now?
We have started putting the audio on. Have started putting the audio online with the committee meetings just here like a few weeks back, maybe a month. But that's the only one. I mean, the only other ones would be the regular Quorum Court meetings, and special Quorum Court meetings are online, through the government channel, but none of the committees.
Oh, okay.
As far as
Thank
visual.
you.
Any other discussion? Any public comment? Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Butch Pond. Yes. Bill Ussery. Yes. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
No.
Tom Lundstrom.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
This ordinance is adopted. The next thing we have coming up is going to be the distribution of the financial data for budget for 2016. What I'd like to do is just call about a 5-minute break while they can get these manuals distributed so that everybody, if you want to stretch your legs, you can do so, or you want to visit for maybe 5 minutes. Thank you, Karen. Wanted to give everyone an opportunity to get these books passed out so there would not be so much interruption when we do get started. First of all, I would like to say, I don't know if any of you realize the work and the effort that these girls have put into. In fact, she was here last night at 11:30, Karen was. So I just want each one of you to, you may not like them, but please be appreciative of them because there's a lot of work that's gone into these. Thank you very much. I've got 3 or 4 or 5 questions that I want to put out to you. And this is not for you to answer now. This is something that I just want you to have a chance to consider. One of the things is, what is the target reserve amount that the Quorum Court would like to see in the general fund? How much money you want to see in that reserve? Whenever, well, right now, the present, Cheryl, what have we got before budget or after all the budgets are figured?
It was the amount I gave you on that other report.
$2 million? What was it?
6.1.
What is it?
6.1. On 6.1.
Oh, yeah, on 6.1.
General actually has 3.8. They're not holding in reserve for anything that you could where you could appropriate any of it. But the 3.8 is what you actually have available to appropriate, because we're currently still holding 1.7 for the jail, and we've already transferred 800,000. But it's if you look at the bottom of 6.1, it has all that on there.
And then the next thing I want to find out is, you're trying to come up with a figure, how much do you want to reserve? And why this particular amount that you're, yes, Lisa?
Just understand the process. Do we have like a 10% turn back that we hold back every year?
We have to, by law, hold 10% back.
Okay, so we have to 10%.
Yes. And Bobby can explain that to you.
Okay.
Yes, 10% of, it's mainly property tax revenue. I think you're allowed to appropriate 100% of the sales tax, but we don't generally do that. We just take 10% off the top of whatever revenues we're thinking is going to come in.
And that goes directly to reserves or directly to general fund, or goes where?
Property tax it's off into a fund called Collectors Unapportioned, and it stays there. If you look at the Treasurer's financial summary, 5.1. The 6,002 collectors unapportioned. You'll see the ending balance there is $7 million. That's what we've held back from our distributions.
Okay, so that's 10%.
And at the end of the year, that will grow to over $10 million, and then we will distribute it in December.
Okay,
distribute it. We'll get 80% of that.
But where does our portion go to? General? Or does it go to reserves?
In December?
In December. Where does
go
that
back into the general fund?
Goes back into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay.
And road and library.
I'm trying to just, thank you very much.
I understand.
J.B. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. Bobby's predecessor, after a lifetime of experience in this office, told us that we need a reserve of about $15 million. At this point, our reserves have declined to this point. And Bobby tells us that at this time, we're still spending in excess of what we're receiving in income. And I think my first choice would be to be sure that we retain or we control spending so that we don't exceed annual income, and begin to try to accumulate and build back toward that target of $15 million. And I know that's probably under current circumstances not going to be easy to do. But I think we've got to use that as a base number to work with, is balancing expenditures and income, that we don't continue to deplete what few reserves we do have.
I'm going to say something here that maybe is not something that people want to hear. But with our millage reduced as low as it is, it's going to be extremely difficult to get your revenue built back up like that. I know with some figures we have come up with, we are 19th from the bottom of the lowest millage of the entire counties of the state. So whenever you take that, you're talking about a lot of money that's been reduced. If that millage had not been reduced and had been left to where it was for the 5 years, they would have been another probably $9 million in reserves. So as long as you leave your millage and you leave it reduced the way you've got it reduced, you're not going to, the growth in the population is not going to be enough to make up that money without the millage being increased again. Like I say, that's not something you want to hear, but that's just the gospel, and I wanted to throw that in. Now, I've got a lot of other things, but first I want to recognize J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I wanted to ask Mr. Hill if what is our sort of monthly expenditures? I know that that's kind of sometimes a good budget gauge for how much you should have in savings. So just sort of on average per month, what we're spending.
No, the general fund?
Well, I guess everything. I mean, I know. I think it needs to include road and jail. Those are the general road and jail. I know some of the others are not sort of money in, money out, but
I would say this financial summary's got the expenditures for the month of August. That would be a good guide. I mean, 5.1. As far as
so 17
an average,
million?
I would have to do some figuring, but that would be a good.
But so 17 million
17 million.
at the bottom of expenditures? Or you're just
What about
oh,
on 5.2?
account?
At the end of it.
561.
That's school districts included too. So okay.
Okay.
You're saying so add general, which is about 2.6, road, which is about $500,000, and jail, which is 1. So
That would be, I mean, some months.
it's about 5. I mean, it's that first subtotal is probably the best.
Probably. I mean, it's hard to say. Each month is different, but like November, the revenues really shoot up.
Okay. Well, because, I mean, I think that's a good gauge for us. It's hard to know exactly what the perfect number is, but if we're spending about $5 million a month, I mean, I don't know how many of you all are following. Jefferson County right now is on the verge of bankruptcy. I mean, they're talking about laying people off and, closing offices because they can't afford to keep their county going. And you think about if we even got in a pinch, 1 month, 2 months, do we even have enough to sustain ourselves through a tight spot? We don't. We couldn't get through a month right now. So we would be looking at, like Jefferson County, doing some pretty drastic things. And I'll tell you, as someone who has cases pending in Jefferson County, it affects you because I call the clerk's office at 3 o'clock in the middle of the week and they're closed because they don't have the money to stay open. So it has real impact, but I think that ought to be a good gauge. I know we've talked about numbers. We talked about 10. We've talked about 15. It's hard to know. I mean, if you look at us right now, I don't think you can say we could set an ideal number, but I don't know that based on our current financial situation that we could say that an ideal goal is attainable. I was on the court when we voted for the millage reduction. J.P. Lundstrom proposed a reduction, and I did a lot of research and went back and looked. And historically, over time, over years, there are always millage reductions to adjust for growth in the county, increases in property taxes, because if the millage rate stayed flat, as the county grows and more property, the value of property increases, we would take in more money than we needed. And so I knew, based off of my research, that it was time for a check. Now, I tried to get past just a quarter mill reduction, thinking let's kind of ease into it a little bit more, and that didn't pass. The 0.5 millage reduction unanimously passed this court, and no one spoke in opposition to it. No one. So it's frustrating now to have, it's been going on for several months now, for people to start criticizing this court's unanimous action. I realize people may have doubts, second guess their votes. They, think that hindsight's 20/20. They shouldn't have done it. But the reality is that all of this entire body came together unanimously and did something without opposition. And I don't know that it's really fair to continue to criticize us over that, because I think if you start looking at, we know each other pretty well now. I don't know that a millage increase has a chance of getting past this court. It's just political realities right now. I think that we can't count on something like that. We are going to have to look at other ways. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, you heard me ask Mr. Hill about the road department. I mean, the fact that this court didn't understand that 40% of every month's sales tax goes into the road fund, that this past month was $224,000 of the $560,000 we took in sales tax. That went to the road fund. And if you look at the road fund, they have almost $2 million sitting in their account. And at this point in the year, September, they are 55% of the way through their budget. This was after their budget was cut last year, and they complained about that budget being cut. And we all know the additional expenditures they've had to bear this year. They've been able to absorb within their budget without any issue, and they're 55% of the way through. I have the big problem with the fact that a sales tax that was passed in the 80s, when revenue was very, very different from what it is now, that we are still considering that same revenue stream to be dedicated to a road department that in the 80s covered a whole bunch more of the county than it covers now, because the county's dwindling. That's been one of the issues with the road millage, because the cities are now taking their share of it. If we start looking at why the general fund is taking such a hit, look at the $2 million that's sitting in the road fund. I mean, do we want to have departments that can absorb hundreds of thousands of dollars in unexpected bridge expenditures? I don't. So, I think there's a way to do this. I think an ideal number is somewhere around 10. That's the best I can come up with. And then I'll just add one last thing. This kind of shocked me. I don't think we have passed any budget controls. So the budget controls that are on here need to be viewed as definitely tentative. Thank you, Madam Judge.
I've got several people that want to talk, but I have got a full sheet of stuff that I want to bring to your attention before we go into heavy discussions. I think it's important that I do this. So I just want to bring all of this out so you've got something to think about before we start trying to decide how the money's going to be spent for the budget that you've got in front of you. This was not what this presentation tonight was meant to be. This was to bring this budget to you so you can see what we've got, and then we've got other meetings scheduled, and I need to be able to bring all of this to you to let you know kind of where that first question is, what amount would the quorum court seem like that we may need? Okay, we've got the discussion. Why this amount? And how do you propose to achieve that target? The next thing I need to ask you on capital expenditures. You guys did not approve any capital expenditures in 2015. What do you want to do in 2016? What is the plan when capital has been addressed and hadn't been addressed in 2 or 3 years and everything's broken down at the same time? How are you going to replace everything? Graders and on, and I could go on with the road, but I'm talking about a lot of stuff. I'm talking about computers. Increase the revenue stream by millage. There's just absolutely no place to cut the unless you want to cut personnel, salaries, and benefits. The county budget is only going to get more complicated as time goes by without revenue being generated. Next thing, are you going to try to do anything for the employees with salaries and benefits? Are we just going to start losing our good employees due to low salaries? Washington County, which the sheriff's sitting back there, and he can tell you, Washington County has become a training ground for every law enforcement in every county in the state. And if there's no increases in the salary or in the budget, we're not going to be able to do anything for these people that's been dedicated and loyal to this county for a long time. And they put their lifeblood into it, and we're going to slap them in the face and tell them we can't do anything for them. These are things, and I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just telling you these are things that you certainly need to request and you need to consider. Is the quorum court going to recommend that operating budgets remain flat for 2016, or will any increases or decreases be proposed? Elected officials would like the quorum court to give them a budget amount. Give the elected officials their budget. whatever you want to give them. If you don't want to give them anything, fine, but let them have the budget you want to give them and let them run their offices the way the people elected them to do. Or do you want to schedule any revenue, each individual budget, or do you want to request only certain ones? Do you want to call in every department and have a review of their budgets? Do you want them to sit there in that chair and you go look down through there and you want to know what they're going to spend and how they're going to spend it? Or do you want to try to single out the big offices, or do you want to do certain ones? These are things that we're going to have to know before we start tearing this apart. These are just a bunch of questions that's come up. And that's what I wanted to make this point tonight. I know we've got a lot of discussion. In fact, I've got, what do we got, Karen? 2 or 3 meetings already scheduled for September. Is that correct? And then we'll start again in October. There'll probably be at least 3 meetings in October, because this budget has to be completed in the regular quorum court meeting in November to be able to pass the millage. That's the law. So there's a lot of thought and a lot of stuff that's going in here tonight, and I know we could start hashing this and why we need to do that and why we need to do that. This meeting is a finance committee meeting to try to get this started and to hand you guys these books to have you to look at them. You can take these books home or you can leave them here. They're yours, and you are accountable for this book. If you show up the next meeting, you take it home, and you don't have it, you're without your book. Because there's been a lot of time and a lot of hours put into these books. Every one of them's got your name on the front of it, so you're responsible for them. Sharon, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Madam Judge. Could we get a copy of your questions so we could kind of make down?
Karen, do you want to?
I would like to do that, and then we could think it through. And
because I rattled them off, there's quite a few things, but these are things that's got to be thought about.
I would love to have a copy of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are they in the packet anywhere, Karen?
No, but I can go make copies now. I can go email.
That would be good.
We just email.
Well, can you please?
We'll print them off.
Could you print? Can you print them for me, please? Thank you.
These are just some things that we have absolutely got to look at. Yes.
Ma'am, explain to me how the millage, if we were to increase it a quarter or whatever, what would go back to what it was, how is it dispersed? If we increase it, do we get all of it?
Yes. It would be, 1 mil is about $3 million per year that would come to the county general.
Okay. Does it have to go to county general by law? Can it go to reserves?
Well, if it would go to the general fund.
Can it go to the reserves?
That would be up to you what you reserve.
That was up to us. If that increase were to go to specifically, can we do that by law is what I'm asking.
General can fund anything. It would go in general first, and then what you would choose to do with it.
Okay, but there's no laws stipulating what we can and cannot do
You're
with
the
it.
one that appropriates
We're the ones
it.
that
So if you want to appropriate it all, then that, you could, am I right? That it can be, I'm certainly not an attorney. and
Okay, thank you.
George, is that
Thank you, madam.
correct? Okay.
And along with that, the percentages that were passed back in 1981, we can decide what those percentages are going to be, or are those set?
Percentages of the road
The
department?
sales tax, right.
Okay, that was done by resolution back then, and so it's not really legally binding.
Okay.
In fact, there was a case back in the late 80s, early 90s, remember the same thing that's happened over in another county. They passed a resolution, and the Supreme Court told them that's not binding. We have a resolution where there was a laundry list and talked about this is where all the money was going to go to. So
Correct.
I think you want to kind of keep within the spirit of that, but you're not leaving
Certainly.
it out.
But we could look at, say, if it's the 60-40 split from the one set sales tax that we do, we can adjust the percentage of that.
You can reallocate that. Sir.
Okay, that we can do, but by ordinance or by resolution?
Be by ordinance.
By
By
ordinance.
ordinance. It's
Okay,
appropriation ordinance.
got it. Okay, thank you, Madam Judge. Appreciate.
So what I've got here, and I know we've got a lot of stuff going, I know we've got some hands up. J.P. Maxwell, let's go ahead.
I wanted to get some clarification from Bobby, if he doesn't mind, on this one, and this may be a question for the assessor as well, but I know we've sent out new assessments for property taxes, and I believe, if I trust my memory, that the average assessment went up for property taxes around 2-something%.
That would be a Russell question, but
Yes, and I won't hold you accountable for answering for his department. It was around 2%. Do you know what that 2% would look like in real money, in total aggregate money for the county, if we collect all of that for next year? Because we're not,
Next year, 17.
right, but as we're moving forward, so we know that helps with the reserves, that helps with the rainy day fund and all that. So we just kind of need to know, or I think it'd be helpful for me anyway, to have an understanding of how much additional revenue we can expect that 2% increase to generate.
on talking about like on the 3.9 mils, what it would bring in if property values went up?
Whatever that property value increase of 2% across the board, what kind of real money that's going to generate when it's collected? And I apologize for flinging a curveball at you from left field there, but
If I can find it.
While he's looking at that, let me just bring something, and y'all be aware. On Tuesday, September the 22nd, I've got a meeting scheduled. It'll be presenting the salary consultant, Mr. Johansson, and then they will also in that meeting will be to review the budget controls for 2016. That would be the next meeting that we're going to have. Then, okay, that's going to be on Tuesday.
It's on this green
Yeah,
sheet
right
inside
there.
your book.
Right. Yeah.
She's reading off exactly.
Okay, then on the 29th, there'll be a review of the 2016 personnel and capital request. And then on the October the 6th, the 2015 budget items, target unappropriated reserves, and so on and so forth. These are meetings that I have got set up now, and Karen has tried to work with these, so I'm hoping that we can work these out, because we're running out of time. We got, whether I know the meetings sometime are not conducive to a lot of people because of different reasons, but if you make it, fine. If you can't, there's not much we can do. We got to have meetings, so we got to get it going. Okay, that's just, yes, Ann, what do you?
Have you done your revenue projections? Are they in this book?
They're in there.
They're in.
And microphone, hon.
We,
Turn you on.
people are asking what the revenue's going to be. He's made the projections, so we'll have to use those projections to determine what the budget is. And he's taken into account the 2% increase and all that kind of thing. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Joel?
Do you have your figures now?
I think so.
Okay.
Where are they? In here.
The revenue projections?
They're not.
Revenue tab is where they are, but this is something else. On the
Okay. That's what everybody's going to have
last
to
year,
with this.
the total value, taxable value is $3.3 billion. And that equated to, if 100% of the people paid their taxes, $13,127,000 for the general fund, 3.9 mils.
you said 13.127? Or
Yes, sir. This year, the values went up to taxable value went up to 3.4 billion, which next year, when it's collected, will equate to 13.464 at the 3.9 mil rate. So you're looking at 300,000 extra to general. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
it did. Thank you very much.
It's not that much.
Okay.
Yes, Cheryl.
Judge, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but if they would let us just kind of go through this book and point out what's in here without asking a lot of questions, because it might answer some of the questions, because like Ann said, the revenue breakdown's in here. We have a lot of just miscellaneous information, some you've already received, some, and of course we have the budgets that people are proposing. And if we could just briefly kind of go through and let you know what's in here, I think that might help answer some of the questions.
That was kind of where I wanted to go with this tonight, to make everyone, yes, J.P. Madison.
Well, Madam Chair, with all due respect, I object. I thought we hadn't resolved your first question yet about what you want for.
No, these were just, I only threw these out here for just.
Oh, you don't
yeah,
want this
that
copy
for,
of her question. Well, that was the first topic that I didn't know we'd progressed beyond.
No, I just wanted all these questions out here for you to go that way, and then we will have this all ready.
So you didn't want any answer to the questions?
Not tonight. Not tonight.
Well, just for the record, if I may continue.
Sure, go right ahead.
At some point, I would like to know what is the most amount of reserves the county has had in the past 20 years and how it dissipated.
And I think some of that's going to be answered as we go through this book real quickly.
Thank you, Madam Judge.
Well, every dime that was spent through the county, as you said, dissipated, was appropriated by the Quorum Court. Okay, I'm going to turn the floor over to Cheryl and Bobby and see if they can explain some of this to you.
Okay, we're just going to kind of go through and tell you what's on each page. So, and if you have questions afterwards, that's fine. Or if you just want to take it home and look at it or write down questions. In the very back, there are some pages that's been included to write notes on. If you have, we go through this and you have questions, you want to write something down. There's enough sheets to have one for each section. You can use that. But the first thing is in the binder cover is about the meetings, and underneath that is the description of all the line items. For the expenditure codes, it doesn't have the 1000 series, which is personal services, because typically departments don't really use those. That's something that we do more just through the comptroller side. And then the next thing you'll see is a table of content.
Cheryl, give us the page numbers that you're looking at.
Okay. The table of content is the first section. It doesn't have page numbers.
Okay.
It has all the page numbers. It tells you what's in each section and kind of covers. We tried to keep them in sections. There's, I think, 5 pages to that first one. And then there's a table of content right behind that. It also is not numbered. It's turned the opposite direction, and it's alphabetical, and that is for the expenditure budgets. And it tells you what page. So if you have trouble finding a budget that you're looking for, you might go to that and find it a lot easier because you might not know what fund it's in or whatever. And then starting on page 1 is cash balances.
Yes, y'all seen this a couple of times, I think. This is the only criteria used in this is my cash balances to begin the year and the cash balances to end the year. That's from 2008, and you can see how it's declining year after year.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, that's the cash balances. What we do, the way we consider carryover, we'll take that cash balance at the end of the year, and any invoices that we pay in January that applies back to last year's budget, we will take that balance, we will reduce it by those expenditures, and that is the true carryover figure that we will adjust in March, hopefully. The next page is one of the answers I think that would help answer J.P. Madison's questions about where the money went. This is showing the projects that's happened since while Judge Edwards has been in office. The ones that are in gray were the ones that were committed by during the previous administration, and that was $10.5 million. And so the total projects while she's been in office has been $15 million. Those are all listed by departments. It kind of tells you the dates of when those were done and the invoices paid. Underneath that is the amount of what the animal shelter operational costs have been. And then the financial overview is just several different things. It's got the year-end unappropriated reserves for various years, the infusion to other funds from county general, and that's grouped by the different funds that it's gone to, and it has the years and the amounts. The millage rates and when that was changed. And it shows the actual loss due to the millage reduction in 2011, 12, and 13. It has that total there.
Okay, page 7. And I assure you we're not going to do each page. After the expenditure tab, this will go much quicker. But
Can I make a comment here?
Okay.
This is a new chart, and I just want everybody to know I am thrilled to death to get a new chart. The old one's been around forever, and you can see how the dollar is actually broken out, and it's staggering. So I just want you to be aware of this.
Thank the county assessor for that.
He did a fabulous job.
Page 7 through 15 is just a rehash from the presentation that a few of us did back in May. He goes over the percentage of distributions, the millage examples, if y'all want to look at that at some point. Let's see. Page 15 is the 1.1 mil for roads. That shows how it's split up with the cities. 17 is all the counties in the state, and they're in order by their population, and it shows all the millage rates and sales tax for each county. Washington County is third from the bottom on page 18. And 19 through 21 is dealing with sales tax. The middle of page 19, you can see the 2000 census and the 2010 census, how it went down 5%. Let's see. Okay, page 23. These are the officials that their main budgets are in the general fund, but they also have, for lack of a better word, automation funds that they can go to also. And that's the listing at the bottom, and the Arkansas code that sets it up is on the right. 25 and 26.
That's none by departments.
Do what?
The elected officials are with the departments and elected officials.
The elected official on the right, and all the departments in the middle, and the fund on the left. And we're skipping budget controls, is that right?
Well, it's just, this is the budget controls that was, you can see at the top, it was updated on 7/16, and it wasn't completed because there's some things in it that are still unknown, and that's another meeting.
Okay, page 31. This is probably the most important sheet in the book. 2016 budget summary. We'll just go right to the county general. I'm projecting in 2016 the carryover to be 11.7 million. Just as a reference, last year at this time we were thinking 15 million. And the next step's the projected new revenue that should come in 2016.
Bobby, can you clarify there? You said last year at this time we projected 15 million. Was that projection accurate?
It was not accurate. It was a little over 14 million was the true carryover for last year.
You were close.
Well, sort of.
A million here, a million there.
A million here, a million there.
But it's hard to say what it's going to be in September or October. But anyway. And then you got the 2016 projected total revenues, 37 million. And we take 10% from that, available to budget, 33.5. 2016 requested budgets, 28.3. So if you look at that, 28.3, the requested budgets, and go back over here to the second column, new revenue, that's where our problem is going to be. 31. The new revenue and the budgets should be much closer. I mean, if you want to save your carryover or reserves or whatever you want to call it, those two numbers are going to have to be more in line one way or the other. And just this 3.2 million far right unappropriated reserves, don't take that to mean that at the end of 2016 there's going to be 3 million in general. That wouldn't be accurate. You at the end of the year, you're going to have your unappropriated reserves, you're going to have your holdback, anybody who turns in money from their budgets, and then you'll have plus or minus your revenue projections. If I did them well, it would be plus. If I didn't, it'd be a negative. But that 3.2 would be more like, if this thing was perfect, It would be $8 million in the bank at the end of the year, somewhere along those lines. And that's just cash balance. Let's see. Also, if you go down to the library, we do not have their budget. That's the reason they have an unappropriated reserve of $2.7 million. That won't be like that next time. All right.
Okay, on page 33, if you look at that, I went through and pulled out the ones was asking for personnel, new personnel, or request some changes to personnel that made their budget change somewhat, and some unique changes like with the ambulance and the election commission. So as you go through there and look at that, what that stands for, that P means personnel, and there's 3. They're asking for 3 new positions. The C stands for capital, and that's in there. This isn't just an absolute. I might have missed some, but I think I got all the ones. I got all the ones that had capital. I'm pretty sure I got all the ones that had personal services. There may be others that need to be pulled out and looked at as well. At the bottom of that are the departments being combined. That's the comptroller and the general services will be under financial management. And overall, that's actually going to be, those budgets combined is ended up being $7,000 less after you combine those. And then if you'll turn to page 35, this is some points that probably need to go through real quickly here. And the general presidential election increase is going to be $857,000. That's personnel and equipment. The equipment isn't under capital because of the individual pieces aren't more than the 5,000 limit. And so, although they're spending, if you'll look on that other page, they're asking for like $504,000 extra. It's still not capital because it's individual pieces. The increased cost for the ambulance service is $133,000. Some of this you already know, you've already looked at. The capital request total right now is $1.4 million. There's 12 new personnel positions being requested in several different departments. They're increased in the health and property insurance, which the bids are out currently, so we don't have that information, but Nelson will be bringing that to you in October, I believe it is. And then the talk about expanding the juvenile court. That, just looking at the cost of the JDC expansion, which was $680,000, that would be kind of a starting point of what that might cost. And there's not been any increases included in any of this that we're doing. And then the Stonewall and Harvey Dow Bridge costs have been taken care of for the current year in the 2015 budget, and that's just because they're not doing other projects. They're not doing other road projects that they had scheduled to do because they're doing the bridge work.
Okay, page 39 is the summary of revenue projections. 39, 40, and 41. And this gives you every projected amount for each line item in each fund. And just a few points. Again, the carryover, general, I'm projecting $11.7 million. The property taxes, 7201, and sales tax 7301. I'm increasing those 4.5% over last year's projections. And that's for the general fund. For the 2000 road fund, their half-cent state tax, I'm projecting 2% increase. And their regular sales tax, the 60-40 split, will be 4.5% increase. Turn the page to 40 to the jail fund. Again, their sales tax revenue, I'm projecting a 4.5% increase. Prisoner care state, I increased, but the federal prisoner care seems to be trending down right now, so that may be a wash. And there's a new line item, a 7850 prisoner commissary. It's not new money, it's a new line item. Last year it was lumped together with sale of materials. 8712, but now it's in its separate line item. Let's see. Page 43, this is just the new revenue, comparing it to 2015. You can see almost across the board, everybody is increasing. I mean, we are a growing county. Sales tax is up, property tax is up. Right now, it's just not enough to cover the expenses. And 45 through 72, it's just a little same thing as that summary page, just a little more detailed because it shows you where we're at for the year, this year, and then it shows you the 2016 projections. I'm not going to go through those.
And then if you'll turn over to page 73, that's the expenditure section. And this is a report that you have every year in your budget. This is still the working budget. And it'll have the funds, it'll have the departments within each fund, and then it has categories for each department. So you can see how much for personal services, how much supplies, other services, capital outlay, transfers out, debt service. Is it requested by each budget? You can see that total. You can see the 2015 approved budget and the difference. The negative amounts means that they're asking that much less. Their budgets have gone down. Their requests have gone down this year from what last year's requests were. And then it has the percentage over to the side. If you'll turn to page 74, the library is highlighted because she has not presented her numbers to us yet because she needs to present them to her board first. She has her numbers, but she felt that should go to her board first. If you look down on page 75 on 0502 that's highlighted, that is the fire protection, and it's an Act 833 money that we used to just go directly to the fire departments through the county. Sometime legislature changed it, and it had to start going through our warrant system. Well, they've changed the law back, which we knew they eventually would. And so now, this year, it's not going to be an operating fund. The money still comes to the treasurer's office. The checks are still written. They're just not warranted with warrants, and it doesn't come through the foreign court system. And then starting on page 77, and I'm like Bobby, I won't go through all these, but every department's budget's in here. It shows actual 2012, actuals for 2013 and 14. The 2015 actual expenditures is 6 months. I did it for 6 months just based on the fact that that might be easier to look at. The problem with that is some of the departments have had some larger expenditures since then than they did in the first part of the year because it's just the time of year that they make their purchases or their costs. And so that's something that we can update as we go through, as we relook at budgets. And one thing that we were hoping that this would do, especially if you go back and you look at on the page starting on 73, you can see the ones that's already reduced their budgets. I'm kind of hoping that maybe they wouldn't have to come back again because they've already looked and they've cut, but maybe they haven't cut enough. So we're just trying to figure out a way to not have as many meetings. The next one is on page 211, is the number of positions. And it starts over on the right, starts with 2000 in 2003 and works over to 2016. The population is that top number. Then it's got it by departments, the number of positions. The difference between 2016 and 2003, you can see that first column there. It shows you, like the county judge in 2003, that department had 6 positions. It now has 5, so it's a -1. So you can look at the rest of those and see. The reason that's color coded is because so you can see what areas have increased. Like general government has increased by 39 positions, highways and streets by 3 positions, health 2, law enforcement 157, public safety 2, recreation and culture has lost 2, sanitation has gained 3, and social services gained 2. So, and that also includes the request that's in this year. So that may be reduced. Those don't include. And then you have the job description by grade. And then you have the pay range by grade following that. So that on 213 is where it starts the job description by grade. In 221, it starts the pay range by grade. And then on 225 is the Association of Arkansas County sends every year, and it's the compensation for the elected officials. That changes every year. They're required by law to send that out to us. And so if you'll look through there, you can see the first one's county judge, and it has the classification there, and it tells you by population what the class is. You can see we're a class 7 because we have more than 200,000. So as you go through and you just find each one of those positions, and you look down to class 7, you can see what the pay range would be, what it was and what it will be for next year. And then right behind that, starting on page 235 is some information that Blair had given you earlier on elected officials' salaries. And then the next section has county services. That starts on page 241. Starts with the contact information for elected officials, for the circuit courts, for the departments under the county judge, and other miscellaneous departments. And then it's got services, the services for the different departments listed as well. And we won't go through all those. You can just read those. And so that's what we were hoping to just give you some information, and I think that answers a lot of your questions. Karen went back and looked at her notes of things that were asked during meetings, and so we tried to include all that information. I don't know that it's in here in a way that it's easily found, but we tried to do that as well. So that, that's the book.
Yes, ma'am, your recognition.
I just want to say a big thank you to both you and Karen and Russell, because I think it's awesome, and I'm not going to say I can't wait to delve into it, but I can't. I mean, I think it's going to be awesome, and I'm just very impressed with it, and I want to tell you thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
So in here with the departments, we have the personnel they think they're going to need for this next year, and the increases they think they might need are in here, correct?
The employees that they have asked for are in there. Let me just point out somebody that's, let me see. One real quick. Okay, right here's a great one. So if you'll turn to page 86, tax collector. What I did if you look on, anybody that has personnel, on the back of their budget will be the positions and the grades and the rate of pay. So on those grayed out ones, those are the new positions that he is asking for. So that is included in his budget request.
Okay.
Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, it is all included. It's not saying, none of this is all just working papers, obviously.
I feel like that what you have in front of you, I'm sorry. I feel like what you have in front of you will be a tremendous asset when you start looking at all this, trying to figure out what you're needing, what you're going to. Like I say, it's not all the answers, and you folks are going to be the ones that have to sort. Yes, J.P. Madison.
I had some questions for Mr. Hill about the projections.
Okay.
I know that at least some of the sessions that I've been involved with, we got preliminary projections in like August, like more close to now, and then they changed in October. And I felt like last year we all were sort of at a disadvantage because we'd done so much work before that second set came in, and then we were surprised. Is this the final set, or is it going to change?
I will review them again in October and I don't anticipate much change.
Because they changed a lot some years.
I don't anticipate that.
Okay.
Now, if our sales tax all of a sudden starts to drop off the table for some reason, then I might have to go back and say, well, it's not trending like it was. But
okay.
I don't foresee major changes, but there probably will be some.
Okay. My next question then is this, the resolution that was passed in the 80s with the breakout of the 1% sales tax. Do you know what that, and it's obvious, 40% to the road department. Where's the remaining 60 going?
General.
All of it's going to general? I thought it was maybe, because I know that the little flyer, the advertisement, showed more of a breakout.
It was going to like fire, ambulance,
But it's not.
Currently, all that 60% is going to general.
Okay, but it's not being broken out in any way. It's all 60s in general.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see the projections with all 100 going to general. I know that's going to change, but.
If you look at road.
Well, but road is not all the sales tax, right?
Well, that 7301 is the 40%.
Okay.
So if you add that to.
Where are you?
Page 39, I'm sorry.
Okay. I was still on 87.
$6.5 million.
Okay, where is it?
Is that my math?
Tell me again which one.
Additional 2.6
7301.
million.
No, that's not right. 7301 is sales tax revenue, is that right?
Yes.
That's their 40.
7301 under general is the 60%. 7301 under road is the 40%. So if you gave
So it's
all that to general, it'd be.
$2.6 million?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I understood that there was some change this year in what you have to take a holdback from. I think our practice has always been the more conservative if we do 10% off everything. But wasn't that changed?
There was some changes with, like, the commission funds, that none of those had that you could project under 100%.
Right.
Of like the treasurer, collector, assessor within the general fund.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm not aware of any changes. There might be, but.
Okay, thank you. Judge, I'll note that it looks like on the planned meetings, we have for October 6th, it looks like all of the budget items, 2015 budget items and unappropriated reserves and the millage rates.
2015 would be anything current, like anybody needing appropriation for the
Oh, okay. Okay. I was like, we're going to do it all at that meeting. We may not even have the final projections. I was a little worried about that. One thing I was going to say is that I know that we've got on our, I think it's, oh, I'm sorry, I can't find it, but it's on our agenda where it talks about our next meeting.
We had scheduled our next meeting on the 24th, but we
Okay.
had to change it to the 22nd.
Okay, and we are going to discuss budget items at that meeting.
Yes.
Okay, because one of the things I felt like was with the elimination of the finance committee, we shouldn't have another quorum court meeting just to deal with routine finance things that ordinarily would have been on the quorum court agenda anyway. So I hope that we can make use of our additional quorum court meetings for efficiency's sake by really only discussing budget items, because I think any routine finance item just goes straight to quorum court and saves us the trouble, because we would have considered it twice effectively. So I was just wanting to make sure that we weren't calling special meetings just to do things that could be done at our regular quorum court meeting. So, thank you.
The 24th had to be changed to the 22nd, yes. Lost all my notes. That's a bad day. Okay, like that was the next thing to come up, was the next meeting. Like I say, it's been changed from the 24th to the 22nd. And because of scheduling conflicts with so many different things. And so, like I say, that was where I wanted to go tonight, to prepare you with the information that these folks have worked so diligently on. Bobby and Cheryl, and, well, I can't begin to name who all's been involved in this, because they've done a great job.
Yes, they have.
And so I just want everyone to know that's what we wanted to do, to get this information out tonight at this committee. Do I have any citizens' comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you guys for being patient. I appreciate you very much.